Hello, I'm Don Farr. I'm the director of the Dedman School of Hospitality, and it is my great pleasure to be sitting here speaking with Andrew Rubinacci, an alum of the Dedman School of Hospitality and Chief Commercial Officer with OMNI Hotels and Resorts. Andrew, how are you doing today?
Hi, how are you, Don?
I am awesome. Can you tell us a little bit about your role with OMNI?
Sure, Chief Commercial Officer. Obviously, pretty new, I think, title is being used now. It was previously would have been known as Chief Marketing Officer, so it's a little bit more descriptive. It is all the commercial functions for the company. So digital, sales, marketing, loyalty, CRM, revenue management, pretty much anything to do with revenue.
Very good, very good. Well, again, it's great to have you here and look forward to kind of picking your brain a little bit. As the COVID-19 pandemic, affects the hospitality industry and all industries, what are some of the initiatives that your company is doing to help reduce the economic impact?
Well, I mean, it's been, we're learning as we go. I've been, I think the first time I was in a crisis, believe it or not, with savings and loans, I was in a hotel front desk clerk back in Tallahassee in the late 80s. So, the Gulf War is when I graduated. So I've gone through a couple of these. This one is bad. It really is. I think, who was it? Chris Nassetta said it was, worse than 9/11 and the downturn in 2009 by a factor. And he's right. So, up to now, we're really just trying to mitigate loss and cash flows. I mean, we're looking at the future on what do we do to grow the business and, how do we take care of the assets. But now it's what do we do to keep the employees as employed as possible. The CARE Act definitely helps with that. But, occupancies have gone down, low single digits. So it's pretty bad. We've got 7 hotels open.
7 hotels in your portfolio. Wow.
We got about 52 hotels, so 45 closed.
Wow, unbelievable. I remember 9/11 pretty well. I was in the golf resort industry, and our business really flip-flopped overnight. From basically, we had probably about 65% of our business was folks who flew into the Pinehurst area, and that went to almost immediately flip-flopped to about 70% drive the next day. Everyone was driving and not flying. How has this impact been similar or different than maybe some of the other challenges that we've had in the industry?
Yeah, well, 9/11 was bad. I mean, I remember some of the numbers. That Q4 of 2001, I think the industry was down, minus 5% RevPAR. Planes stopped, but people still drove. And if you were not in a top 25 market, really not much change. Des Moines wasn't worried about terrorism or Colby, Kansas, or that type of stuff. So there was still business. Things were down. Things were impacted. New York was probably impacted the most, of course. But the industry, I think, was so detrimental. It went from, we were having a great, time before that with the dot-com boom. It went from a 5-point RevPAR up to a 5-point down, which is a 10-point swing. It was pretty dramatic. The 2009, the collapse of Lehman's, in basically 2008, Q4 of 2008, I remember it to this day when Starwood announced 9 to 17% RevPAR drop, and I'm like, oh my God, this is 3 times worse than 9/11. What's going on? And I think the entire industry was down about 15 points. For Q2 of 2020, the industry is going to be down around 75 points.
Wow.
In RevPAR, and that's with if June comes back. If June doesn't come back, it'll be closer to 90. So, and I'm not saying June's going to come back great, but it's, we're talking, I think we're forecasting internally 12% occupancy for June.
Wow.
And we're trying to do worst case scenario. So hopefully, it's more like 20. But, hotels don't run 20% occupancy,
No.
let alone 12. So yeah, it's been a dramatic impact.
One thing that I have noticed in my little experience is that the recovery, hospitality, our industry recovers usually quite well from these setbacks. And, I'm optimistic about that happening here as well. any insider information on when you think your projections are going to start to go up a little bit as far as occupancy or ADR?
Look, I think, if New York City really did peak over the past weekend, which is what they're saying, I think originally they were going to have 65,000 people needed intensive care, and over the weekend they were at 15,000. So it could be much less bad, still bad, but less bad than thought. And if other markets start to come out of it, I think things might open up at the end of April. I know Dallas, many cities have, stay-at-home orders till the end of April, and then we'll see what opens up. We've opened up our hotels again for sale mid-May, so May 15th, try to capture that weekend because we believe drive markets and resorts will do well first. Hopefully capture Memorial Day the following weekend.
Okay.
That might be a little optimistic, but I think we're gonna have a great July 4th. But normal business travel is going to take a time to come back. What's the issue is businesses are impacted. The mortgage, it's not just hospitality now, it's mortgage industry, it's real estate, it's everything, manufacturing. So it's, does this put us into a recession that is going to be harder to dig out of? It depends. I mean, the government has put a lot of money towards this and tried to help workers, and we'll see how that all shakes out. The one thing about our industry and what happened in 2009, we actually recovered fairly rapidly. We're trying to figure out why, because we, as an industry, recovered actually more rapidly than the rest. And when we dug into the numbers, it's college-educated people, professionals who were traveling, and those are hotel guests. And their unemployment shot back down to 5% unemployment within 6 months.
Right.
So they recovered quickest, therefore the industry recovered fairly rapidly. Hopefully some of the same stuff. It's not, unfortunately, the McDonald's server who is staying in our hotels. It's the professionals and people with more disposable income.
Right, and as our students know that it's affected the academic world quite a bit. They're having remote and online through summer B, which basically means through June. We aren't sure about summer C yet, which is the second half of summer,
Right.
whether it's going to be remote or local. But so I'm not sure about that. We've learned a lot. I think the industry. I think as far as the curriculum and whatnot, we're looking at because of some of the things that we're experiencing now. What do you think some of the lessons are that maybe we can take from this as the way we do business in the future to maybe mitigate some of the hardships that we're having now?
Well, look, I mean, we're treating it like we're a startup, right? We're a couple $1 billion startup, which you don't get that opportunity. So, huge negative, I get it, but we're trying to take, what we can out of it and make it an opportunity. So, things that we talked about doing that we just didn't because it was hard. People were in place. We talked about clustering some sales where we have multiple hotels, which is not a unique concept, and people have done that. But do we just go do that now? We had a big back office project where we were pulling out payroll and accounts payable, centralizing that stuff. Same thing with some recruiting. It was going to take 18 months to do. Well, do we just open back up with that in place? It's those type of things. I think the industry, I was talking to someone who was an asset manager the other day. We kind of build hotels to run 60, 65% occupancy, and anything more than that, it pencils, obviously. We're going to know how to run a hotel at 5%, 10%, 15%. And what does that do? I mean, we have skeleton crews on now, even though hotels that are closed. We just need 2 or 3 more people. And some of these are big hotels, 1,000-room hotels that we need 3, 4, 5 more people in order to open it back up and service it at, 5% occupancy, 10% occupancy. So, we'll see. I think it depends on how quickly it goes back. It'll ramp up, but it's not going to go back up to, hey, we open, let's bring every single person back on. So it'll take some time until that happens.
One thing I'm pretty sure of in the state of Florida and probably throughout the country and even the world, it is going to take our great alum and our great students and other university graduates to help drive the economic recovery through tourism, through hospitality and whatnot. Mm-hmm. So I do think our students have a lot to look forward to, and industry, utilizing not just our students, but the other hospitality students around the country. Is there any advice or any words that you would give to our students at this point? I know some are talking about going back to graduate school, during this period of time.
Yeah.
Of course, a lot of ours like the international travel, and I have a feeling they're going to be traveling as soon as they're allowed, which is good news. Any thoughts from your end?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I've got a little bit unique perspective. When I graduated, it was the first Gulf War. It had just kicked off. So we went from, the school went from 100% job placement just before I graduated down to 17% because everyone put the management training on hold. Everything was on hold. And yeah, this is worse, but things came back. It's not like, maybe it took me, when I did get a job offer, I graduated on August 3rd. I started October 22nd, got a job offer fairly shortly thereafter, but they weren't, they were waiting until the new fiscal year started to get the new budget and everything. So I got another football season, which was nice, but it will come back. In this industry, I think it's part of the collective DNA, not just for the U.S., but for the world. People like to travel, people like to eat, people like to golf. I think, as I said, what will come back quickly is resorts. People are going to want to spend some time together, get with families, get out. I think U.S. drive market, where someone might have gone to Europe for a summer vacation, they might end up going to Amelia Island or Grove Park Inn or one of the other great omnis that we have. But I think we have opportunities there, and I think those hotels will do really well. The city center core top 25 markets, it really just depends on what is the overall damage to businesses and will they pull back, because they can pull back travel. Unfortunately, Zoom and GoToMeeting and Microsoft Teams and all that, I mean, we're using it now, and I think that'll change behavior as well. It'll be interesting to see how that changes behavior. I've got, my owner is a very old school. You got to be in the office from 9 to 6, and which is fine. And I've worked in that environment before. Never really wanted people working from home. Well, now you get it, and we're on phones every day and doing this. Things like it's really not all that bad. So.
Right.
I think it's forced people who mainly, would have always traveled, maybe to think of alternatives now. And I think it's going to force companies to think, hey, you did this for 3 months. Why do you need to go to, Chicago? So that's going to be the big wild card on how people come back and what's really different about it. Right.
Well, one thing I'm pretty positive of is the demand for great workers, great students, great alum is always going to be there. And I think that, our students, again, as we go through this together, have a lot to look forward to. I think hospitality and tourism industry is going to recover quickly, once the recovery starts. Andrew, I really appreciate your time speaking with me, and you be safe and take care of yourself.
It was a great conversation. Thanks, and take care. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. I appreciate you.